Hello. Dr. Gill has asked me to do a brief chat on video to you, her colleagues, about who I am, what I do, and the kinds of issues I help people with. My name is Steve Tromans. My fields are neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, mindfulness, coaching, and whatever else I've learned over the last quarter of a century working with people. 20 years of that has been in Harley Street. Then at the end of 2018, as my client base had become more and more international, I switched everything to the internet, so Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, etc. I actually find this to be more effective than face-to-face, as it's more comfortable, it's more convenient, it's just generally easier for the clients. Now, I have to work odd hours, obviously, or at least long hours, to see all these people in places like Hawaii or New Zealand or the west coast of America or Singapore or somewhere. So I tend to have to make myself available from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, my time. And I do that most days, except Saturdays. The reason Dr. Gill has referred all these people to me all over the years is that I tend to get positive, fast results with them. A fact that she can verify if you ask her. There have been so many issues, it's going to come out like a bit of a list. Let's start with the first category, anxiety. Now, under this category we have health anxiety, social anxiety, panic attacks. Really, there isn't anything that somebody somewhere isn't anxious about. It's just that mostly I deal with social anxiety, and that public speaking is a kind of social anxiety. Shyness is a kind of social anxiety. Sometimes people are anxious about their health, about the way they look, and about the way they interact with people, and about their life, and about their experiences, and so forth. But mainly it's social anxieties that I deal with. Addiction is another major category, and when I was in Harley Street, never a week went by that I didn't see at least one or two people to help them get them off cocaine. It seemed to be extremely popular with my clients. But apart from that, obviously there's marijuana and all of the other social drugs, and then the other forms of addiction such as gambling, pornography, sex, etc. My favourite area, or one of my favourites, would be eating disorders. I love dealing with those, except for anorexia, which I find to be a bit of a challenge. But I do like dealing with bulimia and binge eating. I seem to have a lot of success with those, and also obviously weight issues in general. Binge drinking is another thing I've dealt with a lot, especially in London, once again extremely popular apparently, but I don't tend to see alcoholics. Simple phobias such as mice, cats, dogs, heights, lifts, cheese, buttons, you name it, there's a phobia for it, and there's a Latin word for the phobia too, not that I know them all. The ones I've seen the most of would be, I suppose, the aforementioned public speaking when it's described as a phobia, and also flying. So-called emotional issues, it's difficult to categorise things because I'm, I'm not entirely happy putting things in little boxes, but kind of have to for convenience. So let's, in this category, talk about, or at least mention, depression, anger, jealousy, rage, because anxiety is an emotional issue as well. I've done a lot of work with physical issues over the years. Dizziness, IBS, pain, insomnia, I suppose would be categorised there. Obviously with a lot of issues such as those, I will only see clients after they've had all the necessary medical checkups. As an example of the kind of ways I work with people, let's take dizziness for example. You will all have seen patients, not clients, who have suffered from dizziness for whatever reason. Let's say labyrinthitis caused it. So they've had labyrinthitis, and you treated the labyrinthitis, and that's kind of gone away, but they're still dizzy. The reason they're still dizzy, or the ones I see, are because they're kind of maintaining it in their consciousness by the way they're thinking about it. So they're telling themselves they're dizzy, because that seems to be an accurate description. They're remembering being dizzy. They're imagining being dizzy, so they look forwards and they look back and they look forwards and imagine and remember dizziness times. And they become typically quite aware of the top of their head. So if you were to do that, if you were to tap yourself repeatedly on the top of the head and imagine being dizzy and remember and tell yourself, I am dizzy, you'd kind of crudely, in a crude form, you'd make yourself a bit dizzy, or you might do. That's what these people are doing. That's what a lot of people are doing with different kinds of issues, whether it's dizziness or blushing or jealousy. They're remembering the issue, they're imagining the issue, they're, if you like, almost affirming the issue, and they're having the physical feelings associated. It's like vicious circles, vicious loops. So I kind of work with the way they visualize and imagine, with the way they remember, with the way they experience their bodies, with the way they talk to themselves, to help retrain them so they're thinking, in this case, in the same way that a non-dizzy person does. In other words, if they think about dizziness, it's a minor thought, they don't go on about it, it kind of drifts out of consciousness. And all the techniques that work with that, in my experience, are really direct and to the point, and work with the way they're doing the problem, albeit unwittingly. Obsessive compulsive disorder, and its myriad forms, is another category. OCD in general, obsessive thinking, repeatedly checking the taps are off, having a thought they can't get out of their head. These kind of things, that can be quite intense emotionally. Sometimes they're as challenging to deal with as extreme anorexia can be. There's so much distortion going on and so much fear typically that it can take a while to work through. I believe anything is treatable though, and I'll take on anything, but I won't see someone week after week after week after week if I'm not making any difference. I tend to get on with it. If I can't get results within a few hours, or at least a noticeable change, even with extreme OCD, I'll stop seeing the person. That's rare. But some things take a few hours. For me, a few hours would be like 6 or 8 or 10. Normally I see people for 2, 3, 4 hours in total for most things. Now, obviously I've seen a lot of issues. I've seen a lot of clients, 20,000 of them or something like that. And therefore I've seen a lot of everything. And a question I get asked, understandably, by everybody, especially a tricky one to answer is, hello, I have problem X, what can you do to help me? Exactly. And that really depends on what the issue is. It's a very different thing to be dealing with the owner of a hedge fund who is stressed and has anger management issues, and shy, retiring, highly anxious 15-year-old girl who runs up and down the stairs 50 times after every meal because she's scared of putting weight on. So it kind of depends. So I prefer to engage with the person and talk to them and find out how they are doing their problem, how they are probleming, and then begin to work out how to help them to solution. I know they aren't verbs, but I kind of think of them as verbs. I don't charge from... I like to chat via Skype these days, or Zoom or whatever, to clients, because it kind of makes a connection and we can talk to each other. I get more information that way. I don't charge for that. It's not like a session where I take notes and talk about their mother or something. It's more me looking and listening and kind of working out from the perspective of the models I'm using, sort of what's going on. Perhaps 10, 15, 20 minutes, something like that. After that, when I go to the full session, I charge £195 an hour. And typically I do a 2-hour session to start with and 1-hour follow-up, so at weekly intervals. I'm often successful, hence all the referrals, but obviously I don't make any guarantees. I'm happy to talk to you about it. I'm happy for you to pass this on to any of your patients, and thanks for your time.